The signal that should never have been answered. The message arrived broken, panicked, and bleeding through static like a dying scream. Not metaphorically. Literally. Every translator across the Unified Stellar Council flagged it as impossible distress syntax, a pattern only seen when a civilization was under total collapse. Starvation. Planetary rupture. Genocide-level invasion. The kind of signal no one in the Council ever responded to directly anymore. Because experience had taught them one universal truth. If a species was screaming like that, something worse was already there. The sender designation was unfamiliar. Unregistered vector. No known language match. Origin, outer dark spiral edge. And then the final line auto-decoded itself anyway. Help US. They are still inside the planet. The chamber went silent. High Chancellor Viral of the Thashan Accord leaned forward, translucent fingers tightening around the edge of the command dais. Species identification? Unknown, Chancellor, the analyst replied. But the biometric residue embedded in the transmission is not consistent with Council standard lifeforms. A pause. Then, quieter. It is closer to Earth origin genetic architecture. That name alone made half the chambers shift uncomfortably. Earth. The Death World. A planet classified under 3 separate prohibitions. No first contact initiation, no observation without cloaking, no emergency intervention under any circumstances. Because everything that ever came out of Earth broke something. Physics. Ethics. Or fleets. Usually fleets. Chancellor Viral exhaled slowly. They sent a distress call from a Death World colony? No, Chancellor, the analyst said. The signal is not from Earth itself. It is from a system beyond mapped human expansion. That made it worse. Far worse. Because it meant humans had already spread further than anyone confirmed. And something had gotten to them. Another voice cut in, Marshal Keth of the Defense Synod, known for ending wars before diplomacy even finished speaking. We do not respond. A murmur of agreement followed. Keth continued. If something is strong enough to breach a human-held system, then it is already a regional extinction class threat. We quarantine. We observe. We wait for it to burn itself out. A pause. Then, the second transmission arrived. No warning. No delay. Just intrusion. This time, it wasn't broken. It was deliberate. And it wasn't a message. It was a voice. Human. Male. Laughing. Oh, thank God. You finally picked up. The chamber froze. Keth stood halfway. That is not possible. Someone whispered. The voice continued, calm as a man ordering food after a long shift at war. Listen, I don't know who you are, but if you're receiving this, you're either A, the people who send us here, or B, about to regret not being the people who send us here. Static crackled. Then a second voice in the background, another human, female this time. Tell them we are very disappointed. Laughter followed. Not panic. Not distress. Laughter. Viral's grip tightened. Trace the signal origin. Impossible, the analyst said, sweat forming along their luminescent brow ridges. It's routed through collapsed quantum noise channels. It's using debris fields as encryption layers. Marshal Keth's voice dropped. That's military-grade improvisation. The human voice returned. All right, here's the situation. We got a distress beacon from this system. Looked like you were under attack. We responded because, well, that's what we do. A pause. Bad news, whatever's in there isn't native to your tech bracket. It's chewing through planetary crust like it's popcorn. Silence. Then the female voice again. Good news, we're already mad. The signal abruptly cut. And every sensor in the council chamber simultaneously lit up with emergency alerts. Far beyond the galactic rim. A ship had just entered real space. Not jumped. Not drifted. Arrived. And it was enormous. Too large for standard classification. Too dense for civilian engineering. too irregular for Council-designed doctrine. It looked less like a ship, and more like something built by a species that had once been attacked so many times they stopped asking permission from physics. Marshal Keth whispered, "That's not a rescue vessel." Viral stared at the hologram as it resolved further. Gunports like broken teeth. Armor layered in mismatched plates, some clearly alien, some unmistakably human industrial. And a name burned into its hull in multiple languages, some dead, some erased from archives. The Calamity's wake. The analyst swallowed hard. "That vessel is flagged as human origin military." "No," Keth corrected quietly. "That vessel is flagged as uncontained." The ship opened its belly. And things dropped out. Not fighters. Not drones. Pods. Hundreds of them. Each one burning atmosphere as it hit the planet below. The analyst screamed. "They're deploying ground assets into an active extermination zone without orbital sterilization." Viral stood. "Why would they go down there?" A final transmission arrived. This one was not audio. It was text. Short. Cold. Human. "Because something is still alive on your planet. And it shouldn't be." Then the screen went black. Far below, on the surface of the screaming world, the pods landed. And opened. And the first thing the aliens inside saw was a human soldier stepping out of the smoke, helmet cracked, rifle already raised. He tilted his head. And said, "Well, you're not what we expected." Behind him, something screamed in the dark. And the human sighed. "All right," he muttered into his comms. "Confirming hostile presence. Permission to make this everybody's problem?" A pause. Then a voice from orbit, calm and amused. "Granted." And the planet lit up with gunfire. The planet that was already dead, but still moving. The moment human boots touched the surface, the world felt wrong in a way no tactical briefing could have prepared them for. Captain Rourke of the 77th, Wake Division, didn't bother checking the horizon first. That would have been the old way. The civilized way. Instead, he checked the ground. Because the ground was breathing. Not metaphorically. Not geologically. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Irregular pulses that made the cracked terrain rise and fall like a diseased lung. "Yeah," Rourke muttered, adjusting his cracked visor. "That's new." Behind him, Sergeant Halden stepped out of the drop pod, rifle already live. "Sir, atmospheric readings are spiking with bioreactive compounds. The soil is alive?" Rourke finished. Halden hesitated. "Complicatedly." A distorted scream echoed across the ruins of what used to be a city. Except it wasn't coming from buildings. There were no buildings left. Just structures that had been partially digested, half metal, half organic, fused into grotesque architecture that pulsed when you looked at it too long. Something moved between the ruins. Fast. Too fast. Rourke raised his weapon. "Contact!" The thing hit the edge of their vision like a glitch in reality. No clear shape. No consistent mass. Just shifting limbs, overlapping textures, and a sound like metal screaming underwater. The first burst of fire tore into it. It didn't die. It rearranged. Halden stepped back. "That's not biological. It's not anything," Rourke snapped. "Keep shooting until it becomes something we understand." More units landed behind them. The Wake Division wasn't a standard military unit anymore. Nobody in the Council even officially admitted they existed. They were what happened when human expansion hit things that made normal warfare irrelevant. Specialists in turning impossible problems into rubble. A voice crackled over Rourke's comm. "Orbital command." Calm. Almost amused. "Status report, Captain?" Rourke watched the thing in the ruins split into two smaller versions of itself. "Yeah," he said. "We're definitely on the right planet. Whatever this is, it doesn't follow biology, physics, or basic manners." A pause. "Civilian presence?" Rourke glanced around. There were shapes in the walls. Not corpses. Not survivors. Something in between. Define civilian, he said flatly. Silence from orbit. Then, understood. Proceed. The channel cut. Sergeant Halden moved closer. Sir, we weren't told what exactly we're fighting. Rourke exhaled through his nose. That's because Command doesn't know. They only know humans got a distress call from a system that shouldn't have sent one. He tapped his visor, pulling up fragmented Council data feeds intercepted mid-burn. On screen, alien chatter, fragmented warnings, a single repeating phrase. Do not enter. Do not enter. Do not enter. Halden swallowed. That's comforting. Rourke smirked faintly. Relax. If it can be killed, we'll kill it. If it can't, we'll still try, and someone smarter than me will figure out the paperwork later. A scream cut through the ruins. Closer this time. Much closer. Then the ground split open. Not cracked. Not broken. Opened. Like something underneath had decided the surface was no longer optional. And it climbed out. Halden fired immediately. Rounds impacted the creature and vanished into it like they were being swallowed by wet darkness. Not effective, he shouted. Keep shooting anyway. Rourke barked. The thing surged forward. Then stopped. Mid-motion. As if something had grabbed it from the inside. A second later, it collapsed inward on itself, imploding into a tight knot of writhing matter before bursting into ash-like fragments. A new voice spoke behind them. Human. Not from orbit. On the ground. You're welcome, said a woman. Rourke spun. She stood on a collapsed structure that had once been a tower, now fused with organic growths. Armor mismatched. Weapon unfamiliar but clearly overbuilt. Helmet under one arm like she had been too annoyed to keep it on. She looked around at the battlefield like it was a broken machine she'd already decided to fix with violence. Halden raised his rifle slightly. Identify yourself. The woman sighed. Lieutenant Mara Voss. Expeditionary Recovery Division. Also known as the people who get sent when Command stops pretending things are under control. Rourke lowered his weapon slightly. You dropped in without authorization. Voss looked at him like he was adorable. We got a planet screaming for help, she said. Authorization came after curiosity and spite. Another explosion rippled in the distance. Something large was moving through the city ruins now. Not fast. Not subtle. Confident. Voss tilted her head. So, you boys know what this is yet? Rourke shook his head once. Then you're behind schedule. A deep vibration rolled through the ground. The environment itself seemed to react. Structures bending. Matter shifting. Reality warping like it was being edited by something careless. Halden whispered. Sir, this isn't an invasion force. Voss nodded. No. She tapped her weapon. It's a consumption event. Rourke frowned. Explain. Voss stared out at the horizon. Something landed here before you did. Long before. Not a fleet. Not a species. Not even something that should exist in Council taxonomy. She paused. Then added, almost casually. It eats systems. Not planets. Systems. Stars. Gravity wells. Civilizations. History. Silence. Even the battlefield noise seemed to hesitate. Rourke finally said. And it's still here. Voss nodded. Yeah. Another pause. Then she smiled slightly. But it's also still learning something very important. Halden asked quietly. What's that? Voss looked at the advancing mass of impossible matter in the distance. That humans don't respond well to being on the menu. As if hearing her, the thing in the distance shifted. And the sky darkened. Orbit burned brighter. A massive energy discharge built above the planet, Council observers attempting containment, or maybe escape. Voss clicked her tongue. Oh no, she said. They're trying to sterilize it. Rourke looked up. Can they? Voss laughed once. Short. Sharp. No, she said. They're going to make it angry. Far above them, the orbital strike began. And the planet answered. By screaming louder. And waking up something underneath everything. Something that had been waiting. Something that had been eating slowly. Something that now realized. It wasn't alone anymore. When the planet fought back. The orbital strike didn't arrive like war. It arrived like judgment. A silent bloom of energy above the atmosphere, clean, clinical, mathematically perfect. Council Standard Sterilization Protocol. Designed to erase contamination, reset ecosystems, and remove uncontained anomalies from existence. On paper, it was mercy. On paper, it always worked. Captain Rourke watched the sky turn white through a cracked visor. Yeah, he muttered. That's going to make everything worse. Lieutenant Mara Voss didn't even look up. It already has. The first impact wave hit the upper atmosphere. Then the second. Then the third, designed to collapse planetary-scale biological anomalies by destabilizing molecular cohesion. But the planet didn't collapse. It responded. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, like something massive had just rolled over in its sleep. Sergeant Halden stumbled. Sir, terrain integrity is failing. Rourke steadied himself. Not failing. Reacting. A deep, grinding sound rose from beneath the surface. Not metal. Not stone. Something older. Something layered. Voss finally looked up, her expression shifting for the first time. Oh, she said quietly. Rourke glanced at her. Oh, what? That's not the invasion, she said. That's what the invasion was built on. Then the planet broke open. Not explosively. Not catastrophically. Like a lid being lifted off something that had been sealed too long. Across the horizon, massive fractures split the terrain, revealing veins of luminous matter beneath, pulsing, shifting, alive in a way that made no biological sense. And inside those veins, something moved. The invading entity, the consumption mass, the systemeter, began to react violently. For the first time, it wasn't expanding. It was retreating. Halden whispered. It's pulling back? Voss shook her head. No. It's being pushed. A new sound rose from beneath the world. Not a scream. A command. And the planet answered. The ground surged upward in waves, launching entire sections of ruined terrain into the air like thrown debris. The consumption mass was dragged into the fractures, pulled downward by forces that didn't belong to physics anymore. Rourke stared. What the hell is happening? Voss's voice dropped. We weren't the first thing that got here. The sky above them fractured again as orbital weapons continued their barrage, but now the beams were being absorbed, redirected, swallowed by something rising from below the crust. The planet itself was becoming something else. Something awake. Something furious. Halden backed away. Sir? I think the planet is fighting the invader. Rourke let out a dry laugh. Yeah. That's the part one understood. A massive shape rose from the cracks. Not a creature. Not a machine. A convergence of collapsed ecosystems, alien structures, and impossible energy lattices stitched together like a scar that had learned how to move. It towered over the ruins like a god remembering it had bones. And then it spoke. Not in language. In pressure. In force. Every human comm system translated it differently, but the meaning was identical. Not yours. Not again. Voss exhaled slowly. Oh. That's new. Rourke glanced at her. You've seen this before? No, she said. But I've seen what leaves scars like this. The consumption entity reacted violently, spreading across the battlefield like a panic response. It tried to expand, to overwrite, to consume faster. But now it was trapped between two fronts. Humans above. Planet below. And neither one was interested in being eaten. The ground surged again. Entire sections of the invasion mass were dragged downward into glowing fractures, dissolved into whatever lay beneath. Meanwhile, human drop teams advanced, firing into anything that moved, burning corridors through collapsing ruins. Rourke keyed his calm. Command update. Situation has escalated beyond initial classification. A pause. Then Orbital Command responded, unusually quiet. We see it. Rourke looked up at the sky. What's your assessment? Another pause. Longer this time. Then, we are no longer the dominant force in this engagement. Silence. Even Halden stopped moving. Voss chuckled softly. Took them long enough. Rourke frowned. Explain. Voss pointed toward the horizon, where the planetary entity continued to rise, pushing the consumption mass into tighter and tighter containment fractures. That thing eating the system? She said. It didn't just land here. She paused. It was contained here. Halden's voice dropped. By what? Voss looked at him. No one knows, she said. Another violent pulse shook the ground as the consumption entity attempted one last expansion, one desperate push outward. But the planet answered immediately. Harder. Stronger. Angrier. The fractures closed like jaws. And the consumption mass screamed, not audibly, but across every sensor, every wavelength, every piece of matter it touched. Rourke steadied himself. We can kill it now. Voss shook her head slowly. No. A pause. But we can make it lose. The ground surged one final time. And the entity was dragged deeper. Not destroyed. Not erased. Imprisoned. The planet sealed itself again, cracks glowing faintly like healed wounds. And for a moment, everything stopped. Then silence. Then wind. Then distant collapsing echoes as the battlefield stabilized. Halden lowered his weapon slowly. Is it over? Rourke didn't answer immediately. He watched the horizon carefully. Then said, No. Voss nodded once. It's just contained again. A pause. Then she added, almost conversationally. And now it knows we're here. Above them, Orbital Command sent a final message. Extraction will begin immediately. All units withdraw to designated coordinates. Rourke looked at the sky. Then at the glowing fractures beneath his boots. Then at Voss. We just woke something up, didn't we? Voss smiled faintly. No, she said. We arrived while it was waking up. Far below the surface, something shifted again. Not breaking containment. Not escaping. Just acknowledging. Like a predator opening one eye. And recognizing new prey had entered its territory. The things that should not wake up twice. Extraction never came the way the Council promised. Not clean. Not orderly. Not fast. Because nothing about this planet allowed, clean, or orderly, to survive. Captain Rourke stood at the edge of a fractured ridge, watching the sky flicker with failed warp signatures. Every evacuation vessel that tried to enter low orbit either bounced off gravitational anomalies or simply vanished mid-transition. Sergeant Halden finally spoke what everyone was thinking. Sir, they're not getting through. Rourke didn't take his eyes off the horizon. Yeah. A pause. Something down there doesn't want witnesses leaving. Lieutenant Mara Voss sat on a broken slab of fused metal and bone-like structure, cleaning her weapon with calm precision. It's not something, she corrected. It's protocol. Halden frowned. Protocol? Voss nodded once. Planetary containment intelligence. Autonomous. Ancient tier. Possibly older than Council records. Rourke glanced at her. So the planet is a prison system? Voss looked up at him. No. A beat. Worse. It's a lock that learned how to think. A distant tremor rolled across the ground again. Not attack this time. Warning. Like a throat clearing beneath the world. The consumption entity, what was left of it, was no longer expanding. No longer fighting in the open. It was listening. And learning. Rourke keyed his calm. Command, we have no extraction. Repeat, no extraction. A long silence followed. Then Orbital Command replied, quieter than before. We are aware. Halden looked up sharply. That's it. Rourke gave a dry laugh. That's always it. Voss stood slowly, scanning the horizon. It's adapting. Rourke frowned. The entity? No, she said. The prison. As if to confirm her words, the ground beneath them pulsed. Not violently. Intelligently. A wave of energy rolled outward from the fractures left behind earlier, scanning, mapping, recalibrating. Halden took a step back. Is it targeting us? Voss shook her head. Not targeting. She hesitated. Updating. And then the sky changed. Not with ships. Not with weapons. But with silence. Every failed evacuation signal stopped flickering. Every orbital anomaly stabilized. For one brief, terrible moment, everything aligned. And then the extraction fleet arrived. Hundreds of Council vessels, finally breaking through the interference barrier all at once. Too many, too fast, too desperate. Rourke stared up. That's not extraction. Voss narrowed her eyes. That's panic. The fleet opened fire immediately. Not on the planet. On the anomaly signatures below. On the fractures. On the residual consumption mass. Standard sterilization escalation protocol. Erase anything unstable before it spreads. But the moment the first volley hit the surface, the planet answered. And this time, it didn't wake up slowly. It reactivated. The fractures exploded open across the surface like synchronized wounds. Light erupted upward, not fire, not energy, but structured containment force. The entire battlefield inverted. Ships in orbit froze mid-maneuver as gravitational rules were rewritten beneath them. Rourke grabbed a support beam as the ground tilted violently. This is insane! Voss shouted over the rising roar. No! This is defense mode. Halden staggered. Defense against what? Voss pointed upward. Everything. Above them, Council ships began to fail. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Reclassified. Their systems flickered as planetary logic overrode external physics. Engines stopped responding. Weapons misfired into null space. Entire fleets found themselves unable to agree on where up actually was. And then the voice returned. Not from one place. From everywhere. Cold. Ancient. Absolute. Containment breach detected. Foreign civilizations intervening in closed event. Rourke whispered. Closed event. Voss's expression darkened. This isn't a battlefield. A pause. It's a quarantine zone. The consumption entity, deep below, reacted one final time, surging upward in desperation, trying to exploit the chaos above. For a moment, it almost succeeded. Almost broke through. Then the planet made its decision. The entire surface inverted in a synchronized collapse. Like a hand closing into a fist. Everything, consumption entity, battlefield remnants, alien ruins, human strike zones, was pulled inward simultaneously. Not destroyed. Contained. Compressed. Locked. And sealed. The sky went white. Then black. Then normal again. Silence fell across the system. No ships moved. No signals transmitted. Even space itself seemed hesitant to continue. Rourke slowly pushed himself upright, breathing hard. Is it done? Voss looked around. Then down at the glowing fractures that had now become smooth, lifeless terrain. No, she said quietly. It reset. Halden frowned. Reset what? Voss met his eyes. The containment cycle. A long pause. Then she added. And we just registered as an external variable. Rourke exhaled slowly. So what happens now? Voss looked toward the horizon where nothing moved anymore. Where everything had been put back exactly where it started. Except for them. We wait, she said. A distant tremor echoed again. Not violent. Not active. Just aware. Like something deep underground had turned its attention upward. Rourke followed her gaze. Wait for what? Voss's answer came softly. For it to decide whether humans are part of the infection. She paused. Or the cure. Far above them, in the silent orbit of a now empty battlefield, a single council transmission finally pushed through static. Short. Broken. Urgent. Do not remain on the surface. Repeat, do not remain on the surface. Rourke looked at the sky one last time. Then smiled faintly. Too late, he said. And somewhere beneath the planet, something answered back.